Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. How we doing on this beautiful morning? Today, hump day. It's a little hump day action. Love it, love it, love it. The week is halfway through, chat. The week is halfway through. We're almost there. We are almost there. 2 more days. 2 more days. How's everybody feeling this morning? Everybody having a beautiful morning? Everybody got their coffee going? So, where we left off yesterday, again, what we've been doing is spending about an hour or so to talk about like life stuff. Um, I've been telling like my life story. I think we left off barely graduating 8th grade, going on my 10th school. By the time I even got to 8th grade, going on my 10th school, barely making it out of 8th grade. A lot of physical abuse, mental abuse, witnessed a lot of stuff that happened with my mom, and guys that just like to beat on women. Didn't start really doing anything like on my own yet. Like I didn't have any of the burdens that I put on myself happen yet. This is kind of where it starts. I mean, I've gotten kicked out of a lot of schools. I got kicked out of like 4 schools by the time I got to 8th grade. So I'm on about like my 9th or 10th school at this point, and I'm just about to graduate 8th grade, barely. So we'll get into some games too. So yeah, so I graduated 8th grade barely by like the skin of my teeth. Like they were just gonna allow me to graduate but not walk down the aisle. But I ended up getting to walk down the aisle, right? So I applied to like a bunch of schools. I applied to like Central High School, which is like the biggest public school in Philadelphia. It's like the for all the smart kids. Because I was very intelligent, I just didn't have the behavior to back it up. Got denied. There was no questions. I wasn't going to Central High School. So I ended up going to FLC, which is at 15th and Spring Garden, right? So I started high school. I believe the age you start high school is probably what, around like 15. So now this is where like growing up in this city, it's like I said, it's a completely different vibe than growing up in like the suburbs or the country somewhere. So we would hang out at the playground. There would be like 100 people at the playground at like any given night. There was a group of older kids that hung out there. Then there was us, and then there was like the young bucks, right? So this is where like things started to go south quick. So around 15 was like when I probably started smoking weed. I remember the first time I ever smoked weed, it was actually my mom's. I found it, and my buddy Billy and I smoked it, and I got so sick, man. Like I was throwing up all outside. I was throwing up all over the pavement, right? And I'm like, oh, I'm never doing this again. Same thing with cigarettes. First time I tried cigarettes, I got super nauseous and passed out and got real sick, and I'm like, I'm never doing that again. But then I smoked cigarettes. Same thing with weed. Like, oh, this is so horrible. I feel so shitty. I'm never doing this again. And the next thing you know, the next day comes, and here I am smoking weed again, right? So I started smoking weed. Started drinking a little bit here and there. Old English 40 ounces was like they were like $2 a piece, so like that was our go-to on the weekend. Um, Started graffitiing. I started graffitiing. The kids I were hanging out with were graffitiing, so not like your average graffitiing. Like we were like climbing like high-rise buildings and like hanging over the ledge, like writing our name on the side of a building that's 10 stories up in the air, like with a paint roller. They're called roll-ons. If you don't know or aren't familiar with graffiti, Philadelphia was one of the originators of graffiti. Cornbread, who was this black guy from the 60s, tagged on his elephant at the zoo, right? Like, so he tagged on the Jackson 5 airplane. Like, so Like Philadelphia was one of the breaking grounds for graffiti, along with New York. So graffiti was like a big thing. It was like kind of like an outlet, like when you're graffitiing and you're like on the train tracks and you're tagging a train, like everything kind of goes away, right? And like you're in that moment and you're just that's what you're doing, right? So graffiti became a big thing. My mom friggin' hated it. She actually gave me my first black eye when I was 15 because she told me if she caught me writing on walls or if she seen my name anywhere, she'd punch me in the face. And sure enough, she punched me in the face and gave me my first black eye. So my mom gave me my first black eye, which is kind of crazy. She forewarned me too. She forewarned me. She told me like this is gonna happen if you keep doing this, right? So again, here I am. I'm getting into bad shit. I'm doing bad shit. Um, I think around 16 was the first like hard drug I ever did. I believe it was PCP. So if anybody's familiar with PCP, it is a very volatile drug. Again, I'm like 16 years old at the time. So growing up in the inner city, things advanced quickly. You grew up a lot quicker. So we were 16 and we smoked PCP, and the same thing with weed and with cigarettes. This is horrible. I can't wait till this ends. I don't want to do this anymore. But then next weekend came and we're like, all right, who got money? Who's putting up? Like, let's do it. What are we getting? What are we doing? And so it was the same thing with everything, right? And then so I'm still bad in high school. Like I'm still, again, by the time I get to high school, I'm on my 10th school, right? I got kicked out of 4 of them. We moved around a lot. So by the time I got to high school, I'm on my 10th school, right? So I get to high school and I'm just doing the same shit. Like I'm cutting class. I'm cursing the Spanish teacher out because I fucking don't understand Spanish and I hate Spanish class and all these things, right? So I'm continuing on this path of just destruction. So around the same time, like I start taking Xanax. I've tried Xanax for the first time. I also hold on one second, chat. I forgot to share this to my main page. Um, so around this time, again, I'm like 16 years old. Um, Tried cigarettes, hated it, continued to smoke cigarettes. Tried weed, hated weed, continued to smoke weed. Tried PCP at around 16 years old, hated it, continued to smoke it every other weekend. So like I'm getting into this progression of just like life is going downhill, and like I did whatever it took to fit in and get people to like me and to make it feel like I had friends, right? So tried Xanax. I was doing like all different drugs, just trying to fit in with people, hoping people would like me. Um, and it just continued down this cycle, right? And I think I got to 10th grade. I was a sophomore in high school, and they had enough of me. So I got kicked out of high school. So now that's 5 schools that I got kicked out of. I'm going on my 12th school now, right? So by the time I even got to a sophomore, I'm going on my 12th school. They sent me to a disciplinarian school, which is in Franklin Mills, which is like the northeast of Philadelphia. So I got sent to a disciplinarian school, um, which was for like kids that like were selling drugs in school and had weapons on them and shit like that. Here I am, this kid that's intelligent, who has severe behavioral problems because of school or whatever because of home situations or whatever it may be, right? I had these severe behavioral problems. And it was the same thing. I get to this disciplinarian school and it's like I got picked on, I got beat up, I never stood up for myself because I seen what like true violence did to people. So I never fought back. And I remember just like going through the motions of being at this school, and so this is like again still like dibbling and dabbling with drugs, not really like going full in but doing drugs. they end up letting me out of Shellcross about I would say 6 months later. So I like graduated from the disciplinarian school, and they sent me to a regular school. So I go to a regular school. I'm at Kensington High School, which, if anybody is familiar with Philadelphia, it's probably one of like the worst high schools you can go to in Philadelphia. Um, and I did not last very long. So 10th grade comes. I'm at Kensington High School, which again, it's the same shit. I'm getting bullied, picked on. I'm not fighting back, not standing up for myself. And I end up dropping out of high school at 10th grade, right? So, up until this point, a lot of trauma at home, abuse, physical, mental. Went to like 12 different schools by the time I even dropped out at 10th grade. Dropped out of 10th grade. So now I'm a high school dropout. I'm around 16, 17 years old, and things start progressing quickly. So I am 38. For all the younger people that haven't been out there, there was an Oxycontin epidemic, right? So pharmaceutical companies were pushing Oxycontin. There's no addiction to it. It's time released, all this stuff. So as like 16, 17-year-old kids, like Oxycontin was a big thing in my neighborhood. So a lot of people got hooked on Oxycontin and started doing Oxycontins, right? So this was around the first time like I tried heroin. So I remember we used to take a guy to Camden, New Jersey to cop heroin, and he would give us oxys in return. So I'm 17 years old. And this guy, when he got out the car, he must have dropped one of his bags of heroin. Me and my friend number two, we'll call it, found it. And we're like, all right, well, let's try this. You know what I mean? Like, we've done a bunch of other drugs. Let's try this and see what this is like. And I remember pouring it out on the table, and I remember looking at it like, what the hell is this? Like, this ain't going to do shit to me. Like, you know what I mean? And I did it. And sure enough, like, out of all the drugs that I tried and all the things that I've done in life, and this was like that one thing that like I was like, this is it. You know what I mean? Like, this is the feeling like I've been looking for my whole life. Like, this is this warm sensation, and it made me feel safe and at peace, and it stopped my mind from racing so much. So I'm 17 years old, right? Trying heroin for the first time. And I start like going down this wrong path. I'm not fully blown addicted to heroin, right? 17, trying it, seeing what it's like, and then my mom kicks me out of the house and tells me I have to go live with a family member, right? So I move to the suburbs of Philadelphia. I move with a family member, and up there, like, I was able to kind of reinvent myself. Like, I was a city kid in the suburbs, and anybody who's been through that experience, if you're a city kid and you have a certain type of edge and swag to you, like, you're popular in other areas, right? So I move out to this other area, the suburbs of Philadelphia, and like I'm kind of popular, like I'm kind of cool, like, and I'm hanging out at the projects, right? I was the only white kid hanging out at the projects at 17 years old. And I played basketball. I could rap. Oh, by the way, I can rap. By the way, if you if you send me 5 gifted, I'll spit a freestyle for you. No, I'm just kidding. I'll rap for free if you want. But I could rap. I could play basketball. So like I kind of, and I didn't have any friends up there. Like I was in a new area, and basketball was always one of my outlets. So I remember hanging out at the projects and being the only white kid. And they started calling me Dirk. For Dirk Nowitzki. So yeah, that was like it was funny. I was literally the only white kid in the projects, but everybody loved me. So I remember meeting a girl. I'm about 17 at this time. By the way, I'm still a virgin. Like, I was a late bloomer, so I was a virgin at 17 years old. I remember I met this girl, and man, like we dated for like a couple weeks, and then next thing you know, we did the nasty, and and I ended up moving back to Philadelphia, which is like 45 minutes away, and So now I'm 18, right? I'm 18 years old. She calls me like 6 months later and tells me that she's pregnant. I'm like, oh man, what are we gonna do from here? Right? So she calls me at 18 years old. She tells me she's pregnant. I'm like, what the fuck am I gonna do? Yeah, I'm like 18 years old and she tells me she's pregnant and I'm like, what am I gonna do? And like by this point, like I am like going through it. You know what I mean? Like I'm going through it. Like I'm doing heroin, sniffing heroin here and there. Haven't became like a full blown junkie yet. So I'm just doing heroin, sniffing it. Like I develop a habit, right? At 18 years old, I develop an opiate habit from heroin. My son was born. I remember going up and seeing my son. Again, by this time, I'm in like full blown habit mode. Like I'm doing things I don't want to do to get money to buy heroin. I'm 18 years old. So I remember like not really being a part of my son's life. Because like for anybody that doesn't know what it's like to be an addict, or if you have family members that are addicts, it's like you know what's right in your heart.